I am sure that you all have vivid memories of the recent late inconvenience when we were told we need to stay where we were, and Walmart was considered some sort of necessary operation, but churches weren't. And there were a lot of strange things that happened during that time, and people made a lot of efforts to compensate for the limitations with which we were faced. That great Chicago Democrat Rahm Emanuel, among others, said that no crisis should be wasted, and there are a lot of people who are busy trying not to waste the crisis, and one of the solutions was to send everybody money and some sort of compensation for what we were losing. I'll let you decide on the wisdom of all the measures taken for our safety. But, you know, I like you, got funny money in the mail, and I would love to say that I didn't worship at the Temple of Apple, that I only pinched incense, but I did during that time decide, well, gosh, what else can I do? I'm all stuck in the tin can, and every place is closed. There were 2 stores that were still open in mid-nowhere, and I went to them frequently, actually. Because, well, partly because I just love the fact that they were brave enough that they didn't shut down. Anyway, I also bought a bunch of Apple crap, gadgetry, and I explored it, and it worked. And I decided it was much ado about nothing, and I got rid of it. I don't know if the religion of Android is any more noble, but anyway. But there were other things that were going on, and people were trying to compensate for the closure of churches because churches were not considered essential by the state. And Lance Davis, who had been working in New York as an organist, went home to Georgia and stayed at his parents' house and produced the Anglican Office Book, which I bought the first edition of and gave it away when I was dying, and haven't gotten around to ordering the second edition yet, but I think I probably must. And David and John over in Zealand published the Anthologion. And it just seemed like a wonderful idea. I mean, they didn't publish it to be the end of liturgy. The idea wasn't that, oh, with this you can stay home. The idea was that if you're going to be required to stay home, if you're going to be arrested if you go outside the tin can. I mean, there were people arrested for running on the beach with no one else around. It was a crazy time. Anyway, if you were stuck home, it would be nice to have the text that you could have heard had you gone to church. And this seemed like a great thing. And for those of us who grew up in the literary boogie West and were used to having a prayer book that just basically had everything in it, you know, this is the Western Rite version of the English Book of Common Prayer that is used by an awful lot of people. The idea of having something similar seemed very attractive. It was kind of, you know, I mentioned that for converts to Orthodoxy from Protestantism, having an Orthodox study Bible seemed homey and cozy. and for converts to Eastern Orthodoxy from, well, either Western Orthodoxy or Roman Catholicism, having something that was kind of like the breviary or the missal seemed like a good idea. But I think it is, although a good thing for the purposes which it was intended to be used when one can't make it to the Commonwealth, that it is important to recognize how far short it falls of actually attending the liturgy, actually attending the services of the church, that it is a compensation for the services of the church, but in no ways a substitution for the services of the church. And I think this is importantly true, because I think if there is any methodology, tradition, body of knowledge, body of experience, viewpoint, way of understanding the world and the universe and everything else, it is orthodoxy. And that is because I view the world through the lens of Marshall McLuhan. I actually have a book by Marshall McLuhan that I got recently that will kind of form the basis for a video I'm going to make expanding on this idea of how orthodoxy fits in the post-television age. But for now, let me just say that as we enter the post-Gutenberg age and the post-television age and the age of instancy, and what Gutenberg said would be once again an oral society more than a visual society, a way of understanding the world that never went through the changes of the Reformation, of the Gutenberg Revolution, of the Counter-Reformation, of trying to condense everything down into one convenient book, has a lot to offer. And, one of the things that it's often said that orthodoxy is the best kept secret in America. And one of the things I find fascinating about orthodoxy, it is very unlike anything that one might expect. I have a friend with whom I have this ongoing discussion. He is an Anglican, and Anglicanism just gets uglier and uglier, and he doesn't like it. By that I mean the songs are ugly, it just, they've lost any sense of beauty. And he says that, I am attracted to orthodoxy because I think it's pretty. Well, it is beautiful. But when one enters the temple, especially at Vespers or early in the morning, if you're there for the hours or matins before liturgy, it just is stepping into the universe. It is stepping into the time out of time. It is stepping into eternity. And it is stepping into the book of Revelation. It's kind of like having a TARDIS of a sort. And it's visually stunning. But when one prays, one doesn't look at all the icons. One centers oneself and puts one head in one's heart if one can, and listens to what is going on, listening to the answering of the choir and the reader and the priest and the deacon. It is very much a song. One of my friends said he compared it to swimming. One swims in the sounds and the music of the liturgy, of the hours. And that, unfortunately, unless one is a much better singer than I am, and certainly doesn't work with any of the polyphonal chants, one can't do with the book. And I was prompted to make this video because I usually make videos about book reviews because, well, you know, I grew up in the modern West, and one of the first things that I was taught by my mother, who wanted me to do well, is how to read. So by 3, I was reading pretty well. And I have lived through, I don't even quite know, I haven't quite figured it out, how many different revolutions in terms of how we get information from reading to television, to radio, to television, to that little screen that, let's see, the camera's over there, that I'm looking at as I record this video, and that you're looking at as you watch it. And this week, I think Apple Vision went wild, entered the wild, as they say. I don't think there's much wild left with Apple Vision, but yeah. And this is very disorienting. I have mentioned again and again how important Alvin Toffler's concept of future shock is to understand just what sort of world this is in which we have neighbors who seem crazy because they are, and we seem crazy to them because we are, because we cannot deal with the rate of change. And yet we have people say, oh, we need more and more change. That was the motto of a recent presidential candidate who had indeed been groomed for office by Rahm Emanuel, if I remember correctly. Change. Well, we have more change than we need. We need a viewpoint from which to look at the change. McLuhan talked about using a metaphor from an Edgar Allan Poe poem, or was it a short story, that when one is in a maelstrom, one needs something to grab hold of, to float around the outside and look at it. And that is, I think, what orthodoxy provides. You know, I've mentioned that orthodoxy is not what most people think of it. And, you know, obviously I can't, in one video and one silly old man, explain the wonders of it fully, but let us consider, for instance, modern physics. Bohm and Einstein, for instance. There's almost nothing in modern physics, either Einsteinian or even quantum physics, which hasn't been discussed in a way by Maximus the Confessor. I don't know that there's ever been anyone smarter than Maximus the Confessor. Now, the powers that be are always jealous of intelligence, so he had his tongue ripped out and his right hand cut off. You know, Galileo was lucky. And I'm not going to say that the West isn't swell. You know, scholasticism I've never really delved into very much, but it did more or less produce Newton. But there's more to the world than Newton, and there's more to the world. Well, you know how it is, Horatio. So, as someone who most often writes about books, and someone who is expecting another book in the mail tomorrow, and I'll probably make a video about it, I thought I should also be honest and say something about the shortcomings of books and how we might, especially in this crazy post-everything world, find that bit of flotsam to hold on to as we circle around the widening gyre, trying to figure out what rough beast it is that is slouching towards Bethlehem. Well, I would, of course, be happy if you guys comment on my anti-book video, and I thank you for watching.